They're not going to leave their children behind. And the government has many other ways that they can ensure that people show up for their courts. One of the ways is giving them an attorney. That's actually the best way to ensure that someone shows up for court. But many other ways, forms of supervision, short of an ankle monitor, that are very effective in ensuring people show up for their court. And the government should be relying on those rather than wasting people's lives and taxpayer money, keeping them locked up.
Lisa, I want to bring you in here because you defend people that are trying to get out of these prisons. I want to ask you, why is it that folks that are put in immigration prisons do not have access to attorneys like folks that are put in prisons in the criminal context?
Okay, are we okay here? Just a quick sound check. Hi everybody, thank you for that question. So the legal reason as to why people are not provided an attorney, even though they are effectively in a prison, is because legally they are in civil detention, which is really already an absurd an idea, but they are technically not in a criminal proceeding and they're in a civil proceeding, and therefore the law says that while you have a right to an attorney, the government will not pay for one. And I always, the whole idea of this play is really that no person is illegal. There shouldn't be a blanket idea that people who are non-citizens are criminals, but sometimes I get frustrated often in this job, and I'm always like, are they in criminal proceedings or not? Because you're jailing them, they're in prison, so give them an attorney if you're treating them like criminals. But at the same time, they are considered civil proceedings, so they're even deprived of something that what you're saying society's undesirable. Is that any better? Either way, yes, it's because of the absurdity of a concept called civil detention.
Civil detention. So immigration imprisonment is not considered punishment. I just need you to sit with that for a second. It is not considered punishment. I want to stick with you a little bit because there's a whole bunch of movements, and we'll transition into what we can do, but there's a whole bunch of organizations that are helping right now the folks that are locked up without access to attorneys. And Lisa, I wanted you to just share those stories. What is it like to work in immigrant detention? And how is it that lawyers are able to even go in there to represent clients? And what are the percentages of people that actually get representation and get out?
I don't know actually the exact percentage of how many people currently who are able to obtain attorneys and get out of detention, although it is very low. It's something like 10% or something like that. What is it like to represent people who are in detention? It is very challenging because one, as the play mentioned several times in terms of the isolation and just the lack of access to the public, you have to pay for your phone calls. You have to rely on family members who have no idea what is going on with your proceedings while you're detained. Just being able to access an attorney in and of itself is an assumption that the government makes when they make that law that you have a right to an attorney that in actual practice means nothing. But the way that I work at a place called Immigrant Defenders Law Center. Our mission is that no person should ever be alone in an unjust immigration system. We, at least in Los Angeles, there are ways in which through litigation and such, as well as other partner organizations who have at least implanted themselves in some access point where detainees can speak to somebody initially to have access to the outside world. One is something called the Legal Orientation Program that's run by Esperanza Immigrant Rights Project, where they have contracted with immigration court to be able to connect detainees who are initially in proceeding to at least get a list of attorneys to call and get attorneys. But that is a drop in a bucket. And that's also because, you know, we are here in Los Angeles. That program doesn't exist across the country. There were several times mentioned in the play about families not being able to locate people because they've been transferred to Alabama, to Mississippi. It is not, you know, a coincidence that immigration prisons keep popping up in these remote areas. They are legal service deserts, and so when these big, you know, prisons open up in other places, it takes 4 hours for anybody living in a metro area to be able to represent a client. It is incredible. It is pretty much they have no chance of getting an attorney. We've seen that time and time again. You know, especially in the last several years as places opened up in, I think, Louisiana and Mississippi, and, you know, with the incredible work that the ACLU has done in trying to depopulate Adelanto, I think in the background what is happening also is that people who get picked up from local jails, they're being transferred to those remote detention centers. We've seen a family that we saw at the border who actually, I believe, is a Russian family seeking asylum, and the first thing that ICE did was transfer them to Mississippi. And so it is still happening very much today, and unless the government, when they say you have a right to attorney, unless they make it actually a thing that is possible, it means nothing.
I read somewhere throughout my career that somebody who has legal representation in the system is, I think, over 1,000% more likely to be released than somebody who doesn't. But the numbers are stark. 10% of people. So imagine you're going up against a DOJ judge and a Department of Homeland Security lawyer by yourself without knowledge of a law that is changing, as you saw in the play. It started off as a pamphlet, and now it's a guidebook that's this thick. And there are a lot of organizations, as you know, as Lisa was saying, and as we have represented here, that are really working to try to help those inside while we change the laws that are so inhuman to these folks. And Rosie, I want to ask you about the California Community Foundation, and specifically the LA Justice Fund, which we all need to know about. And also, I just want to leave you with one thing too, which is California incarcerates 25% of all immigrants that we incarcerate. This is local. You mentioned Adelanto. If you could say some words about Adelanto and where it is, please, Rosie, and tell us what the California Community Foundation is doing to try to help these folks, please.
Sure, and I just want to say thank you so much for the invitation, and also today was my first time seeing the play, and I agree, it was just very powerful. And you know, I myself also come from immigrant parents. My family, mixed status family, where we had siblings that had status, others that were born in the U.S., and so can also just personally relate to the stories. And I think what has been really missing is the need that we really need to humanize the issue, because we are talking about people's lives, keeping families together. And at the California Community Foundation, as a community foundation, we really believe in working with community to find community-driven solutions to address the challenges that our communities are facing. And so we have an immigration portfolio that I get to work and be a part of. And in this portfolio at CCF, we're working to raise resources and partner with local government to expand access to protections to all, regardless of status. And in 2017, specifically, as we were seeing the spike in immigration enforcement, you know, the other layer that has been very complex is the collaboration between ICE and local enforcement and local police. And literally what has accelerated this deportation machine to identify low-hanging fruit, people that have been in the system, target them, deport them, send them to Adelanto in San Bernardino, like 2 hours or so away from Los Angeles, and you know, keeping them isolated. And so what we were seeing in 2017, and in response to that spike, CCF in partnership with the city and the County of Los Angeles and the Weingart Foundation, but also I just really want to acknowledge that it was really thanks to the leadership of our grassroots community organizations that for decades have been advocating and pushing for more investment, that finally in 2017, it really raised the alarm that we needed to do something. And there was this unprecedented partnership between philanthropy and local government. And initially, we raised collectively about $7.4 million to launch the Los Angeles Justice Fund. It was a pilot program that was extended for an additional third year. That third year is now sunsetting, but in the first 3 years, we raised $11 million, and it supported 11 legal service providers here in the County of Los Angeles, including organizations like Immigrant Defenders Law Center and many others. That were really, our goal was to expand access to due process to all regardless of status. And through the program, what we've seen and through the data, everything the play depicted is 100% correct. And sadly, a lot of very young, vulnerable immigrants, many 40 years of age, the breadwinners of their home. Data we see from our U.S. Equity Research Institute has also highlighted how by deporting families, they represent 40% of the household income. So at a time where we're trying to address homelessness, at a time that we're trying to address these multi-layered challenges in our community, we're not making the connection and saying that the greater well-being of immigrants is the greater well-being of a society, as we can see. And we saw it with COVID, right? Our communities who has been disproportionately impacted, and it's our communities of color, immigrants. And by the fact that what we saw in COVID is that they are essential, we're saying they're essential, but yet we're excluding them from a lot of critical resources. And so right now the Los Angeles Justice Fund is going through a transition. So it started as a pilot, and what we saw that the program has been very successful. It exceeded its original goals of the program. And now our goal was how do we institutionalize these investments? And so we're very happy and excited to see that the County of Los Angeles has now adopted, embraced this program. They are investing in this year alone, $4.5 million to now broaden the program. So the program is not just focused on deportation defense, but it's really about building and strengthening the pipeline of immigration legal services to those that are at the most vulnerable, facing the threat of deportation, to those that are seeking already for naturalization or seeking temporary protected status, DACA, our youth. And so, but we know that we need more resources, and that's just a small drop in the bucket. And that really represents even less than 30% of the county's budget. And so it's really a small contribution that can have significant impact. Our foundation, along with Weingart, we are also contributing again to this program. Each of our foundations already made an investment of another $1 million for this year. And now the program is right now being considered by the leadership of the City of Los Angeles. The city has also committed to another $2 million, but the program is still going through the city's legislative process. And I will say that for CCF, being engaged in this program has also raised the alarm and elevated the awareness that we need to also invest in the power building efforts in our community. I can just say that there were 11 legal service providers that were funded through the program, but the amount of advocacy, of engagement, of education that has undergone in these last couple of years is just enormous, and it hasn't been funded. And so for us, we are also excited to share that we are supporting a very innovative, exciting initiative called Immigrants Are Los Angeles. I encourage you to visit that website. And what this initiative is seeking to do is really to invest in programs like the LA Justice Fund, but also in supporting the activation, the engagement that needs to happen at the ground level to ensure that we hold our leadership accountable, that we continue to support programs that really meet the needs of our community. And there's actually gonna be a rally this Tuesday that the Immigrants Are LA Coalition is organizing. The website has a lot of information. And then in June, CCF is gonna be hosting an immigration summit to really highlight the amazing work that is happening here in Los Angeles, but also highlight the opportunities and what is still missing, right? Where are the gaps, and how do we continue as a region, ensure that we are all moving forward together. So Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to talk about action items. We have a special performance coming next, but since you mentioned the LA Justice Fund, Richard, 2 seconds. Since you mentioned the LA Justice Fund, can you tell us what's happening with the LA Justice Fund right now, Lisa, and what people here can do to help?
Yes, so as Rosie mentioned, the county has made its investment and is going to make this program an ongoing program where people are provided an attorney. And one of the things that the county did is adopt what's called a universal representation model. A universal representation model is a term that's been used a lot within like the immigrant advocacy space, which is imagining a public defender system in immigration court. And what that means is no matter what your life experience is, no matter what criminal history you have, if you're forced into immigration court proceedings, and I think I want to make that clear, people are always forced into immigration court proceedings. It is as if you are getting a arraignment, you're brought into criminal court. Sometimes you lose touch of reality when you're practicing in these courts, because you get told time and time again, this is a civil proceeding, this is a civil proceeding. But in all practice, the way that non-citizens are treated in court and the way that the non-citizens are treated in detention, it is as if it's a criminal proceeding. And so what the LA County has done is adopt a model where it doesn't matter what your criminal history is. If you cannot afford an attorney and you have residential ties to the County of LA, then this fund will provide you an attorney. The city, on the other hand, has not committed to adopting that model. And in the play, there were several stories of people, because of past trauma, all sorts of things that happen in everyday life, where they've encountered, some sort of interaction with the criminal justice system. The first story, talking about the drug possession, the veteran going through mental health issues. What the city is currently proposing is actually expanding the exclusion based on criminal history, including, I think the term that perhaps all of you are now aware of if you've seen the play, called aggravated felony. Aggravated felony is a very, very broad category of convictions that is not mirrored in the actual criminal system. It is a purely immigration term that includes, like you saw, the petty theft that happened, in the library, or simply having. It includes drug trafficking or nonviolent crimes. What the city is proposing to do right now is to adopt a program that excludes almost everybody that you saw in the play today in terms of getting an attorney. And so one action item, especially if you're a resident of the city of Los Angeles, one of the 1 to 15 districts that exist in the city, if you feel that this is wrong, that it shouldn't matter what your criminal history is, if you're forced into a proceeding where your life and liberty may be at stake, I urge you to contact your city council member and say that you are in support of a holistic LA Justice Fund that excludes no one, no matter what their criminal history is.
Thank you, Lisa. That's a definite action item that you could do right now. I want to introduce Richard Montoya, who's an LA actor, playwright, all of the things, who's really spent his life telling the stories with humor sometimes of people he's met on the US-Mexico border. And we're fortunate to have him do one of the works of art that he created in his Border trilogy. So I'd love to have you present that, Richard, and thank you for your work.
Thank you, guys. I just was anxious to get going because some of the cast came back, and actors love to perform for actors, but now I see they're going to leave again, so that's all right. They had a hard-working day. And out of respect for the fellow playwright, really want to respect that work and not get too actory on you out here today, but try to walk you through what are the challenges of culture and art creating on the border are the same challenges we have in this parking lot this afternoon behind a tire shop under cloudy skies, and we're trying to transport ourselves out of the parking lot, out of the border, that give us a bird's eye view back that allows us to see things that maybe we didn't consider before. So the fact that your mother is here and that dignity is so important to me. Thank you, ma'am, for being here. Reminds me of my own mother that used to love to come to our shows, and that generational thing is so beautiful. I also want to thank the Fountain Theater. I think we got to make a lot of noise, give them a round of applause for their leadership. They are absolutely fearless. La Mirada Dinner Theater's not doing DETAINED tonight. The Fountain Theater is, and so Stephen and your crew deserve a lot of credit, a lot of love for that. Tonight, they're doing the musical Critical Race Theory tonight, so buy your tickets. They are fearless. That was one of my big jokes. It just bombed in the parking lot. I'm trying to transform you out of the parking lot so that we can get to the place that we need to get to with these fantastic folks. And I've never had lawyers open up for me, but it's always a first. And I'm not necessarily the main act. I'm just the payaso, the clown that was willing to get up here for you and use my text. And what I do at the border is interview people from dangerous places and out of our comfort zones, and we culture make and theater make based on real people and true stories, much like my fellow playwright has done. So go ahead, Mr. DJ. We're going to try to get little sounds going, making us feel pretty good out here. Can we hear it? Yeah, there we go. Huh? In the shadow of Scientology, okay? And all the ghetto birds that are flying over. Come on, turn it up a little bit, Mr. DJ. Come on, man. We haven't partied in this parking lot. There haven't been this many black and Latinos partying in this parking lot since '85. Come on, turn it. Oh, got some kids here, so I want to watch the language factor. But there used to be a club way back in the days, right close here, and this is reminding us a lot about it. So, Mr. DJ, when I kind of do that, you just go back up to the top, because this song gets a little crazy after about 3 minutes. And we're not ready to get there crazy yet, but just kind of get the groove going a little bit. And it's a beautiful parking lot. Look at all the floral arrangements that have been arranged for you here on Fountain. And this is with a Sunday dedication to all those who hazard their souls to the misfortunes of the desert. To all those who hazard their bodies to the misfortunes of the desert. To all those who have hazarded their hearts to the misfortune of the desert. Like my sister playwright, we bear witness. We stand witness in a Hollywood parking lot in la ciudad de Nuestra Señora de Los Ángeles, where nothing is concrete except our river. We pray for Ukraine and Article 42's demise, and that nobody gets slopped at the Grammys tonight. We pray that Hanukkah comes early and takes the life of Stephen Miller. And thank you to his rabbi for disavowing him. Let us, Lord, rattle the colonial ghosts of LA. Let us end LAPD gang injunctions so that we may live in and with a peaceful two-state solution, allowing cholo zombies and hipster vampires to live side by side in Echo Parque. For I too have walked in the valley of the shadows of the San Fernando, and I am not afraid, though I am wary. Let us remember the names of those who have perished, not able to reach MacArthur Park. Because America left the cake out in the rain. Let us not forget those who did not reach the water stations on the Tohono O'odham, sovereign land, Indian country, El Paso corridor, La Frontera, heroin country, waiting for transports, Norte de America, New England, Maine, and the mean streets of New Hampshire await appetites. And those unable to reach the desert angel warriors before the elements do. Convicted felon, former Sheriff Joe Arpaio, poster boy of zero tolerance campaign of anti-immigrant terror, found ballot boxes, ballot machines in Juarez, Mexico. And Trump opines today from Mar-a-Lago Desmadre, we are all complicit. Mine eyes have seen the tents of Tornillo, Texas, where brown children torn from and still separated from their parents who love their children no less than we love ours. Fathers making up stories on the spot to calm horrified children. Go with these nice men, mijo. Go with these nice men, mija. The ones in the ice jackets at the detention centers. Go with them, mijo. You're going to summer camp. Go with them. There's my smile. There's my smile, mija, mijo. The summer camps. Like the father in the movie Life is Beautiful, the Nazis at the door, trying to calm their child. Journal entry. Artists in cartel country. Deeper up Rio Grande, Piedras Negras, Big Bend. Looking for Captain Kurtz deep in America's heart of darkness. Well, why don't you just go back to where you came from, says the lady at the border. All right, I'll go back to Silver Lake. They still look confused as if though it's a communist state of mind. We are a nation of immigrants, or a nation of armed immigrants. Aggrieved, cowardly. More people were shot in Sacramento last night than the central zone of Kiev last night. Secondary inspection. Nogales sector, DJ. This many guns. This much meth. This many roadside shrines. Crooked and contorted diamondback rattlesnakes twist back until they become the truth again. Pima County medical examiner allows Cat Rodriguez, a true social justice warrior, and Notre Dame Latinx students access to the bodies of those who died abajo del cielo, under the sun. The last body they found in the sector, male, approximately 30 years, was wearing the medallion of the Saint for Lost Causes. And this is how they allow the families and find the families in the far reaches of Mexico and Central America to allow them for their closure. The deserts take, man. The city takes. The detention centers swallow. I'm barely ESL, Gabriela, in an ADD world. And the border enhances my abandonment and attachment issues all at once. Nogales, US. Nogales, Mexico. A vortex. New power grids. Violence lives in poverty out there. Love is a prickly pear, best eaten impossibly cold. Where I walk in shadows, the deer have wandered down from the mesa, looking for water that the family of four could not find. Placekeeping. Final journey entry. Jose Antonio Rodriguez, 15 years old, killed by U.S. Border Patrol agents. I spoke to his abuela in her small, tidy kitchen, rushed because she was afraid her husband would return from work and find her talking to me about her grandson. She had no more tears left, no time. And her husband had run off the BBC the day before. We try to help. We find the safe houses in the Badlands. American Jesuits are there, hippie Lutherans, framers of the sanctuary movement from Tucson are there. Elders of the sovereign reservations, the Tohono O'odham, are there. And U.S. Jews, committed congregants from the Tree of Life Reformed Synagogue, Pittsburgh, PA, are there working, helping to tell the narrative. Final journey entry. Are you with me, Fountain Theater? Can you make some noise? We're still together. Final journey entry. Corpus Christi. Motel room off the interstate. A pistol shot at 5 o'clock. The bells of heaven ring. I can't tell you what they've done it for. No te vayas. No te vayas. Did it ever occur to you, Texas, to put the gun down? Our relationship to women. Our relationship to reproductive rights. Texas, your relationship to transgender folks. Have we ever, will we ever pay heed, Texas? You have dead named and you have misgendered the dead. Indeed it's so. Johanna Medina Leon, trans, human, asylum seeker, Salvadoran, died following 6 weeks in a private for-profit immigration and custom enforcement facility, already facing allegations for abusing LGBT detainees. The day Miss Medina Leon passed away was also the first day of Pride Month in the U.S. And exactly 25 years to the day after the death of Selena Quintanilla. And we arrive, Texas, at our 21st transgender killing of the year. We ring the bell for Malaysia Booker of Dallas, Texas. Also perished in the detention center. We ring the seabell for Nikki Enriquez, found off Interstate 35 in the Laredo sector. And a final ring for all the victims. A ring for all the queer boys and queer girls at the border. God damn it, they're there. Suffering, magnified, squared, pain. Families can't claim them or even know that they've perished because of the misgendered phenomenon. And finally, for the boy, the brown boy that crossed over from Matamoros. And by the time he got to Brownsville, she was a Brownsville girl with the Brownsville curl. And so, with our poems, our songs, our plays, we fight back against the onslaught. Sometimes the truth gets through, like today's beautiful play that you saw. Thank you.
And we all have a responsibility to act. As I said at the beginning, when you see something, you can't unsee it. And we all have a responsibility. So I want to ask if there are questions from the audience, but first, I want to ask our panelists to say, what can people do concretely? You can leave here and do what to help people that are in immigrant detention systems right now? Let's start with you, Rosie.
Thank you. Well, the one thing you can do is you can invest, support, make a contribution to the Immigrants RLA Fund at CCF. Funding would go to support efforts that support programs like the LA Justice Fund, and also the organizations that are providing the legal services and are also doing have the boots on the ground that are engaging our community leaders to continue to build support. Every contribution, no matter the size, counts, and it all adds. So I think that's definitely one thing that folks can do.
Thank you. Lisa.
Sure. One concrete thing to do is, folks may not know, but if you are an immigrant in immigration detention, there is a hearing where you can have the judge determine whether you are eligible to be free, to not be in detention anymore, and that's called the bond hearing. And it's similar to, I think, the bail hearing that perhaps people are more familiar with. But the judge puts a monetary amount that a person has to pay to be able to be free from the immigration prison. That amount can be anything between $1,500 to, I've seen, $50,000. And the other complexity to this is that this bond amount, the thing that you have to pay, you have to be a green card holder or a US citizen to be able to pay it. And there are many, many people who are in detention who have mixed immigration status, and there might not be a person in their family that can go and pay for this, even if they have that money. So one thing is to donate to bond funds. There are bond funds that are there's the Long Beach Liberation Fund as well as the OC Justice Fund. I think the National Bail Project also has funneled money from their bail project to various bond needs across the country. RAICES, also I think an organization that people know, have a bond fund that they have dispersed nationwide. So that's one concrete thing that you can do. And also volunteer to pay these bonds. You know, I don't think any of us can whip out $50,000 from our pocket, but you might have the legal status to be able to take that check and pay that bond fund for a family. So there are volunteer organizations across the country that you can do that. And then, like Rosie said, invest, contribute to these including the theater, all sorts of these organizations that are telling stories, that are providing services, that are uplifting these the voices that often get ignored. And perhaps on a little bit of a plug, Immigrant Defenders Law Center is having our annual gala on April 28th. This is a way to not only provide, so as I mentioned before, a lot of these public funds that allows us to do our work, it often excludes the people who are most in need. We are raising money so that we are not restricted to any sort of these politicians' agenda, and we can provide the services most needed in the way that is most holistic. So if you go to imdef.org/gala, please come join us, celebrate, but also your contributions will allow us to freely be able to represent whomever that is in need the most. And then lastly, another plug for LA Justice Fund. If you have any communications with the LA City Council offices, please, please tell them to support a holistic LA Justice Fund.
I'll give you two quick, simple things. One, if you go to this theater's website, fountaintheater.com, click on the link for this play, there is a list of these organizations and several other immigration rights organizations. You can click on any one of them and help in any way that you can. You can donate, you can volunteer your time, but go to our website. If you're like me and you have a very bad memory and you don't remember everything that was said, go to our website. All of these organizations are listed. And the other thing you can do is tell people to come see this play. Tell at least one person. If you're on social media, post about it. Post about something that you learned that you didn't know. If you're not on social media, pick up the phone and call somebody. Tell your neighbor or somebody. Tell them to see this play. All of these stories are true. And we should all know that this is happening. So just tell people to come see the play.
Two more quick things. One is that there are many visitation programs that have sprung up around immigration detention centers, including around Adelanto. These are where community members can go volunteer, meet with immigration detainees, provide them some human contact with the outside world. Many people may not have family here. If they have family here, the facility is located so far away that they rarely get to see them. And it's so important for people to have that contact, to humanize them, to keep their spirits up. And you could also get engaged in fundraising for bond and other things to support them and their family. And then quickly also put a plug in for the ACLU. If you go to our website, aclusocal.org, we have a variety of Know Your Rights materials that people can access. We have posters and other materials if you want to show your support for immigrants' rights, and lots of ways to get plugged in campaigns at the local, state, and federal level, including by becoming a member of the ACLU.
Can't follow these smart people. I have nothing to add. Just do everything they said. I just really, we say support theater, and it's really the critical arts. And I think that for those of us committed to social justice in our work, there's a little price we pay. And you all saw theater today in a film town, and there's still that dialogue, that tension between what is a play and what could be film and what could be theater. And even I've turned a few plays, into film, and I could very much see this play becoming write up on your Facebook or socials, just write a beautiful little review. We're all empowered now. And I'll tell you, just being out there in cartel country, or when I sat for 2 hours with Joe Arpaio, architect of the demise, these are lonely positions. This is not fun time. It's I guess the way people feel also in detention, and people that we've interviewed in detention. It's that a playwright can feel very much isolation. So this theater is a celebration, a weird word to use, but it is, and we're honoring the work. And so we just really need as much love as we can get.
I think one of the panelists 2 weeks ago or last week, I can't remember, notified us about the LA County's budget meeting in which they were talking about the LA Justice Fund. I did call in, I put my name in to speak, but there wasn't enough time. But I was really disheartened to hear Councilmember Krikorian put an exception into the LA Justice Fund. They were voting to allow everyone, even people with aggravated felonies, to have access to the LA Justice Fund. And unfortunately, Councilmember Paul Krikorian said no. and I don't understand all of the legal jargon, but my heart dropped. And I emailed him. He's my council member, and I suggest all of you email him as well and say that you don't agree with that, because I think everybody should have access to the LA Justice Fund, especially people with aggravated felonies. They're the ones that need the representation most. So it's really quick. Just email him. I know Prince Luce or someone from your organization provided kind of a template as well of different points you can make. Maybe that can be put up on the Fountain's website. Oh, I see you have it back there as well. Yes, okay, there's a flyer. But that's something I did as someone who doesn't have all of the legal information and knowledge.
Thank you. And I'm gonna just say one more thing, because we focus a lot on local involvement, what you can do here in LA. Immigration law is federal. And every single congressman and senator, I worked on Capitol Hill for many years, there's something that they do every day, which is they go into their office and they ask their legislative assistant, usually a very young and new and excited staff member, who called, about what, pro, con, what was it about? And they tally these calls. And so the senator, the congressman every day will say, oh, look, we got 50 calls in favor of immigration reform, of the Vision Act, of the New Way Forward Act, which is right now in Congress with not a lot of action, but would fix this '96 law that broadened the scope of mandatory detention. I want you to understand that each call matters, is logged, and is told to your representative. And that is a way that also we can participate. So with that, I want to ask if there's any questions. You have a kind of wide array of personalities and talents on this stage. Me? Oh, sorry. Do you all have any questions, any frustrations, any thoughts? Have we been so thorough? Yeah? Is everybody gonna call their congressman and their local city council member? Is everybody gonna look up the LA Justice Fund? And as a communications director, my job is to talk. I can tell you that just talk about this. If each one of you goes home and says to your loved ones, did you know that the US runs the largest immigration prison system in the world? And that folks in there don't have access to lawyers and are just like us? I can assure you that that can be a catalyst to make people who didn't even know that they care about this. And also, a not so shameless plug, because of the play's success, it's gonna run through May. So tell your family members, if you were impacted by this, tell your friends to come bear witness to what we're doing to mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and children in this country. I see a question in the back.
Yeah, man, I think I read a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a week ago, that a judge in like Ohio has eliminated Homeland Security's new sort of, they were actually trying to open the field a little bit, and a judge in, was it Ohio or Oklahoma? Ohio pushed back. How is that going? Because the new Homeland Security chief is getting pushed back, by the way, from underneath, from ICE, right? So what's happening now with this judge, and is there a fight happening? Anyone at all?
I have to admit, I don't know the details, but I know what you're referring to. So basically, immigration enforcement is so dynamic. I've not been doing this for long, but I have been doing it for 7 years, and it has been, like, the one thing I cannot say is that it's boring, because everything changes so frequently and so quickly. And the thing that you're referring to, and I think the play also referred to, prosecutorial discretion. This is where an administration decides to enforce the law in a different way than previously. The current administration has basically decided to do what the Obama administration did previously and put in categories of non-citizens into, this is our priority population to enforce the immigration law, and these are not so much. We're gonna kind of not talk to them anymore. And my understanding is that, and Texas and other states have tried to challenge that and have successfully challenged it temporarily, where ICE's hands are tied to be able to prioritize cases, basically. And my understanding is this new Ohio federal court has once again put a stop in the way that ICE can prioritize, and basically try to do what the Trump era did and make everybody a priority again. Because it's so new, at least in our offices, we haven't seen a direct impact on it yet, but I imagine there are other litigations happening where this will be an ongoing thing of putting people's lives at limbo again. There's no certainty when you're a non-citizen, unfortunately, and it's just like, it is completely a dehumanizing experience in not knowing, not being able to plan, what my life is gonna be like next year, what is my life gonna be like next month, things like that. So I don't know if anybody else has.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. The only thing I was going to add is just the judge and some of these other cases that have been looking at ICE's enforcement priorities are seizing on the mandatory language in the 1996 that we've been referring to and saying, oh, we have to do these harsh things, because they're interpreting the immigration laws in a really broad way to require people to be arrested, held, even in circumstances that they've never done that before. It's just one of the other pernicious ways in which the 1996 law is rearing its ugly head. What ICE is doing in this case is like the most routine thing that any law enforcement agency says, which is like, we want to use our resources to go after these people in this way. Like, every law enforcement agency does this. Like, we want to put our resources into going after these kinds of cases. And the judge is saying, no, I get to tell you how you use your resources, and you have to get everyone and keep them all locked up, which just makes no sense from a policy or legal matter. But this is the legal environment that ICE is operating in right now, that they're being forced by some judges in some parts of the country to do things that don't make any sense.
And it's no surprise that this issue has become so political. I mean, we have a president who, our past president started his campaign saying Mexicans were rapists and murderers coming into this country. This has become political. I have worked in politics as well, and I can tell you that political parties are counting on us not caring, on only a fraction of the population caring. So when you go speak to your congressman, when presidential candidates come to court your vote and they ask you what you care about, say immigration. They need to understand that this isn't an issue that's just, this percent of population in such state. Talk about it, ask what their solutions are, and obviously keep an eye out on this 1996 law, which inflated the prison population, and the proposals that are seeking to reverse it. I saw a question back there.
Yeah, I was wondering, are these detention centers, are they for-profit or are they part of the federal system? I know we have for-profit prisons, which I'm totally against, but it seems like a related kind of an issue.
Yeah, the question was, are these for-profit detention centers or not? I will also toss it to the experts, but what I can say is that the for-profit, anti-for-profit prisons, again, prisons who make money off of incarcerating people, has been kind of successful. So much so that they're being phased out in the criminal use, but what's happening is that they're being filled with immigrants. So if you can give us a couple words on the hodgepodge of prisons and...
Yeah, so we have this sprawling system of immigration incarceration in the United States. We call them detention centers, so that's a euphemism. They're prisons and jails. Sometimes they're literally prisons and jails that ICE is renting from local county jails or state prisons. But in many places now, ICE has been increasingly relying on private for-profit companies to operate these detention facilities. And one of those is the Adelanto Detention Facility, which is operated by the Geo Corporation, one of the biggest and most notorious for-profit private prison companies in the world. And what these businesses do, they make a profit out of incarcerating people. And you can imagine the types of incentives that creates for how they treat people in their custody. Lisa probably knows better than me the types of things that her clients are deprived of in Adelanto because it saves the business that's operating in there a few bucks. So it's another really pernicious force that's been driving up immigration detention. These companies exist to make money off of locking people up.
And they were amongst the highest increase in stock prices under the Trump administration was for-profit prisons.
And what Gabriela was referencing too is that the Biden administration has publicly taken the position that they should be out of the business of using private for-profit companies for criminal incarceration, which is great. They should. But what they've done is they've been exiting the scene, is moving those facilities into operating immigration detention facilities. Which is so perverse. If it's not right to hold people there for serving a criminal sentence, it certainly isn't right for holding people there when they're going through a civil immigration process.
All right, we have one more question, and then we have to wrap it up. I'm seeing Stephen here telling me to wrap it up.
I just have one question because it's just boggling to me. Is there anything right now in the books for immigrants that have been here, not committed a crime, not even like getting a traffic ticket, but are undocumented, have been here 15 years, 20 years, whatever, doing all the jobs that nobody wants to do? Is there anything in the books for those people to come and legalize themselves so that they don't have to live in fear? Because I know people like that, and if they had a choice, they will do it. Is there anything right now in the books that addresses that?
One of the saddest things I've learned in practicing immigration law is that that there really is not a lawful way to come to the quote unquote lawful way to come to this country and getting status if you are poor. Your question for people who are here and who are undocumented for decades, is there a way for them to get lawful status? Oftentimes not without severe consequences and severe complexities. And it all comes down to whether they obtained a visa to come here in the first place, or they had something called a lawful admission to come here in the first place. Most of the time, people come here for financial necessity, and therefore they may have come here undetected. Even if they have a U.S. citizen spouse, they would have to leave the country first and be able to come back in to apply for a green card. And that triggers a whole slew of complex things, including potentially being barred from entering into the United States. And that's the main reason there are so many mixed status families and undocumented parents. While they want to do the right thing, they come from a country that did not have such an easy way to come in here with a tourist visa. There wasn't an easy way to come with a lawful status. And so the only option they have is to leave the country and to come back, but then that triggers a whole slew of complications that might mean that they may never be able to come back just to get a green card. And so there are technically other ways that an undocumented person may be able to get legal status, but that requires being forced into immigration court. That requires having some sort of hardship. Our immigration system is so punitive, and it is also victim-based in that you almost have to be a victim of something to be able to gain status. And it does not include just pure family reunifying reasons, which should be the way that our immigration system works. So to answer your question, it depends, but for the most part, no. And that is why we need so badly so many types of an overthrow of the current system that we have.
All right, thank you all so much. Thank you for coming. You know what to do. And thank you to the Fountain Theater. Thank you.
So have you been?
Okay.